and then we get a 2-minute. And good morning, guys. Hey, Bob, K6UDA, big show for you today. Happy Labor Day, guys. Welcome to America. My first Labor Day in America. I have today John Kruk from Yaesu, and he's going to be here to talk about the FT5 and maybe a few other things, because you guys know me. I'm going to ask the questions nobody else asks in ham radio. Good morning. Let's see, Nick Lutz. Good morning, Nick Lutz. Good morning, Shadow Bear. Let me go to camera 2 here. Scott TC Fitz. Happy Labor Day. Ham radio guy. Andy Crowley. Ham Shack. James Hannibal. And Dennis is in the house. Nice. Very nice. Hey guys, you know what? I know John is a very busy guy, so I'm not going to take up a lot of his time outside of this. So let me see if I could figure this out. I'm going to bring him in, add him to the right of me. And there he is. John, how you doing? Can you hear me now?
How you doing, Bob?
I'm good. Very good. John, hey, thanks. Number one, thanks for being on the show. Number two, I know it's Labor Day and you labor, I don't. And I'm sorry, I'm taking your time away from burgers and hot dogs. But thank you again for being on the show. Man, I'll tell you what. I was rather almost shocked how quick it was between the time that the FT5 was announced and the time I got one in my hands. Let me go to, yep, there it is. To that time there, let me go back to Solo U. Oh, hang on here. And we'll go back to, nope. Oh, man. Hang on. Got to get the right camera angles here. And back to that one. And there. Oh, wow. This is actually the first time. This is a new feature in this software package that I'm using to bring guests directly in without using other stuff. Because I tried last week, I tried using Skype and it didn't work, so it was all bad. Anyway, John, because I know. Anyway, we were. I was very, very pleased to see you guys just crack this thing out. And, normally I pretty much wing it, but today, because, I don't want to take up a lot of your time that's unnecessary, I wrote down some questions. So, let's start out with, you know what? Here's the big question that everybody's asking. Why is there an FT5 and not just update the FT3 with the features that you've added?
Well, because this kind of relates back to the whole COVID situation and what's going on kind of globally with the chips and everything like that. We were lucky enough to not be impacted by the audio chip as per se as like other radio people or manufacturers were. A lot of the chips like that are being held up or holding up cars from being manufactured. Like for an example, I'm a paramedic and our ambulance is still about 9 months out, and the reason it's 9 months out still is because of the audio chip or the chips required for like the onboard dash computers, all that kind of stuff like that on there. What happened is that we at Yaesu, we were starting to get wind that there might be a component shortage. And that's where it's more importantly is a component shortage, not a chip shortage. And what happened is that we looked at it and we said, okay, what do we do? Do we get new components? Do we update the 3? What do we do? And that's anytime we release a new radio, that all kind of comes into play with everything. And the way that we took the approach is that there were people who had sent in and people had made suggestions, all, the 3 coming out. Oh, I'd like to see this. I'd like to see this. I'd like to see this. And if there's updates we can do in firmware, we will try everything we can to do the update in the firmware. However, a lot of people think, firmware is a firmware, it's an update. And it's really not. Sometimes it's dependent upon components and stuff like that on there. So when all these factors came into play, components, features, upsets, and everything like that, we looked at it and we couldn't really per se upgrade the FT3 without needing to basically recertify the FT3. I've had a lot of people through this whole thing saying, oh, it's just a money grab, it's a money scheme, it's something like that. You could have upgraded to 3. Well, no, not really. And then people said, well, as amateurs, we can build transmitters and stuff that we want. Yes, you as an amateur can do that. Us as a manufacturer, we don't. We have to meet FCC type acceptance. We have to do all these kind of things on there. So when we took a look at the 3 and we said, hey, here's the components and stuff that need to be upgraded, that need to be replaced on there because the old ones aren't there, we said, you know what, let's not try to upgrade the 3 and do this and this and this because it was going to require recertification. Let's take it and let's then go to the next level. Let's not make it a lateral move. Let's make it an upward move and an advantage or advancement on there. And then that's where a lot of the stuff in the 5 comes about and comes actually into play on there. So, the bell clip, those kind of things like that on there that you can't do with the 3. Feature sets and part of the functionality or feature sets of the 5, we just couldn't put back into a 3. And I know a lot of people said, well, you can't. No, we can't. If we could, then yes, we would make improvements along the way. And I think a good case in point in that is the FT1D series and the FTM400D series. We made a change to those radios. That's why they came out with the XD models. When we came up with those changes, they were components or changes enough that did not require the recertification of the radio. So that's why we had to do what we had to do. We had to say, you know what, even if we wanted to keep the 3 the way it is and just change components, we would have needed to recertify. So let's just come out with the new, and the FT3 was great. A lot of people were happy with it. I know a lot of people say, well, this and this and this they didn't like. Well, unfortunately, sometimes you hear the complainers more than you hear the happy people. But the FT3 was a very popular radio. Many people liked it. And we just had to take it out of production because of that.
Okay. Fair enough. And now, continuing on that, because the FT3 is, you say out of production, I guess the rest of us say discontinued, or the stores say discontinued. How long, or is Yaesu going to continue to support the FT3, and how long?
We don't put a time limit on there. See, when we come to our radios, and that's why we use the term out of production, because when someone hears discontinued, they think, okay, the radio's not made anymore. There's no support. There's no nothing. No, we do support the radios for a long time. How long, that comes into many, many different factors that we can't quite nail down. We can't say, hey, here's what it is, and we're only going to support the radio for this long. Nor do we really want to go ahead and say that. And the reason being is that I'll give you a classic example. As I've said it, the FT897. Alrighty, the FT897 you could argue was the predecessor to the FT991. It was a shack in a box. It was VHF, UHF, HF, all mode, everything like that on there. Well, we ended production of the FT897. The FT991 came out, and then of course 991A. But we're talking that radio was almost I was almost saying myself, out of production for almost about 10 years now, if I remember correctly. Now, maybe coming close up to that there, but we still support the radio today. I mean, people have sent their radios in for repairs, so we are still fixing that radio that we can. And it comes down to the philosophy of Yaesu, which is something that I really, really, really like. And I'm happy as working for a company with that, because we don't put a time limit on it, but we don't run the radio out to as I kind of call it, run it into the ground. That when we say, hey, it's out of production, that we can't support it anymore. We look at it and we say, okay, what is the longevity of the components we may need, the parts we may need? What is that time frame going to be? So instead of running it out and saying, yep, we used up our last component and the last radio came off the production line, and guess what? Now we can't do anything more for the radio, even if we need to repair it. No, we don't say that. We're saying, okay, you know what? We have this many more components for this long of a time frame. Let's hold on to it. Let's go ahead and end production so we could still repair, we could still replace, we could still do what we need to do in order for you, the customer that are watching today, to be able to say, you know what? Hey, I need this radio repaired and stuff. Can you repair that radio? Yeah, we can. And we've done that with a lot of radios. I know still there are some people have sent in, FT2000s, just older radios that have been out of production for a while, and we're still repairing them, or we're still working with them because we can. So I can't put exact date on it, but we do have that long-standing tradition and history. Another good case in point, if you actually take a look at the last firmware update for the FTM 100 mobile, you will actually go ahead and see that radio was actually out of production prior to the firmware update coming out. So there you go. So that kind of goes ahead and tells you and that kind of thing like that on there. But each radio is unique in its repair factor, those kind of things. So sometimes we can do it for a very long time, and other times we have a shorter span of it.
Okay, let me get my buttons going here. Let's see. TC Fitz asks, Bob, you're very red. Yes, I guess I am. It's the background on the screen that I'm looking at. If you looked at a different camera, the other camera there, it isn't. So let's see. Okay, hey, since I got you here, the biggest differences between the 3 and the 5. let's. I know I've gone through. I did a quick video over the weekend or last week, and I know Josh did over at Ham Radio Crash Course. But coming from the pros, let's for anybody that doesn't know, that just fell off the moon and doesn't know what an FT5 or an FT3 is. Uh, how about that?
Okay. So, and that's a fair question because, once again, we see a lot of people that are online, all those kind of things, saying, "Oh, an FT3 and it's just replace it." No, it's not. So, I'll give you a thing. Here's the FT3. I have the little white tape on there, so we can tell the difference. And the one without the white tape is the FT5. So I'll show you a couple comparisons. So first of all, the first of all, I go ahead and I draw is to the design of the outside of the radios on there. So if you take a look, the PTT button kind of textures out, kind of makes almost like a little bit of a slant kind of out there. A lot of people are saying, you know what? I don't exactly like that. But then here's my FT2. You see how the FT2 is flat, and they said, I kind of like that, but still I like a little bit of a raised. So we kind of compromised. If you notice, kind of a little bit of let me kind of see, there's getting a reflection there. Here, let me try it from the backside there. That might be better. You see, it's kind of a little bit of a tapered out a little bit. It's not a sharp kind of aspect on there, but a little bit of a taper out. The next biggest thing on there is people that they probably need to match their shoes with their belts is the orange button, because everybody seems to have heartburn about that. We did that for a couple reasons. One is from a distance, people were saying, hey, I can't really see the buttons on there, or it might be difficult if they're wearing a glove. They look down, if their glove's covering it, they may not see it. People wanted to be able to have the buttons on the case a little bit more, and the power button highlighted, so we went with the orange, and we went actually with the PTT button. And believe it or not, guess what? We had orange buttons on our radio before, folks, so it's kind of, people like that, so we brought that back. The next biggest thing on the outside is, of course, the optional way you want to carry it. So if you have the flat battery pack on there without the belt clip, you can actually slide your holster in there, and it locks into place. This thing is actually pretty tight on there. As you can kind of see, I'm giving it a good pull, and it didn't pop off on there. Or if you're saying, hey, here's the deal, I want to not use the clip, that's fine. You can go ahead and have the regular battery clip, and then you can put it right in the battery there, and you would be good to go in that regards there too. When we start to get more features, we kind of start to dig into, let me actually go ahead and finish off here. You have some rubberized kind of molding around there, which actually goes ahead and makes it a little bit, so if you're going to drop it or hit it or anything like that, I knock over my other radios. And as you notice, we actually changed the rubber siding. So if you wanted just the speaker mic, you can just unplug the speaker mic. You don't have to unplug the rest of the stuff on there. And then you have kind of a little bit of a different layout on there. That is kind of the external improvements on there. We have made a couple other changes on there. One of the biggest things I would say is some more of the features on there. So we did a few more of the buttons. A lot of people said I did not like the F button on the screen as you had with the 3 and you had with the 2. So we moved the F menu button right to the front panel on there. We moved things around a little bit, so the GM and the X button are actually one and the same now on there. And then we actually changed some of the menu functions in the radio. Now, with the FT3, just like with the FT5, I should also say 2, and the FT2 for that matter, you kind of have a dual menu system. So not only do you have the deep level menu system on there, let me try to get that on the screen there, but you have these other touchscreen kind of menu systems on there. And some of the things are really easy and simple to do on there. So like your squelch type and code, you can get to those right away on there. It makes it a little bit easier for you as the user on there, instead of needing to go menu system down. So if you think about it, it's actually a 3-tiered kind of system on there. You have quick functions here. Hey, I want to change the A and the B band, so I can go ahead and do A, hit the band key, the back peak key, the PMG key, which is kind of an interesting thing there. And what the PMG features is, I'll get to that in 1 second, but it more quick functions is really kind of, I guess, what I'm getting at there. Then once again, that's menu, and then you can get into the deep menu. Now the deep menu is very similar to the FT3 and the FT2. We wanted to keep it that way on purpose, but I would say one of the biggest things that a lot of people have talked about on there is the audio equalization for digital voice on there. You can actually select if it whether be high, a flat, or a low. So, and I've heard people tell me this, even when I've worked with other digital modes, especially public safety on the ambulance and stuff. I actually have to, when I program my radio, I actually change my audio equalizations because I have a lower voice. So sometimes if you have a lower voice, or sometimes you may have a higher voice, sometimes digital, if you're in the higher ranges on there, kind of causes a little bit issue, but you can actually adjust it and make it sound better. And I've done that. I've heard, a lot of guys talking and stuff like that. And I was like, oh man, you know what? These guys that are talking, they kind of got low voices. I'll adjust it to the high pitch or low pitch. And basically, if you think about it, it's just doing graphic equalization. So you got your low pitch, you got your higher pitch, and then, much like we do on our microphones, our HF microphones with the condenser mics and highs and low cuts on there. One of the other big things about this is the PMG function. And there's a lot, don't get me wrong, but these are kind of the 10,000 foot view. The PMG function is pretty neat. So if you are ever doing a special event, or you're driving through an area or something like that, and you want to be able to kind of quickly throw frequencies into a memory, but more importantly, frequencies into a memory to the point where you want to watch for traffic on them, then you can activate the PMG. And what PMG basically means, it's a priority memory group, is sometimes what's been referred to as, and or preferential, or I can't say it. Anyways, preferred, let's call it that way, group, where basically you have the frequency on your display, you push and hold the PMG, and it locks that frequency into a kind of a quick zone. Alrighty. And then you see another frequency you want, push and hold it, locks that frequency into that. And then you could do a third frequency on there. So what it allows you to do is basically allows you to sit, you can look at the display, and you could be monitoring a completely different frequency. But then when there's traffic on one of those other three frequencies that you have in the PMG, the bar graph will show up on there, and you can tell that there's traffic, and then simply go and tap on the actual PM1, 2, or 3 on there, and then it will take you right to that frequency. Now, a lot of people said, well, that's sort of like the cam function. What's the big difference over there? The cam function is sort of the same thing, but what you have to do is you really have to kick over the cam function into the memories, and then you have to build your group of the cam function with the memory. So basically, you have to put the radio or frequency, I should say, into the memories. Then you have to go ahead and create the memory group or the cam group, and then assign people to, or the frequencies to it. So that gets relatively difficult for some. So the PMG is more of that little function on there. Obviously, we made it a little bit more durable. And what I've heard a lot of people actually say is that they feel it's more comfortable in their hand. It's slightly bigger. I mean, not tremendously bigger, but it is slightly bigger. You can kind of see that the FT5 kind of shadows the FT3 on there. But it's just an all around a little more of a solid radio. I mean, you got the dual LEDs right on the top there for, seeing the traffic on there for what you're receiving. Just like the 3, believe it or not, it will do the simultaneous receive of fusion traffic, but it will not have simultaneous audio. And there's a big difference, because that was a big thing that some people had heartburn over.
Oop. Looks like things went away. Okay. Looks like you went away there for a minute.
Yep, sorry about that. I got to put more quarters into the internet.
Okay, let's.
So not sure what happened. Sorry about that. Labor Day, I guess it doesn't want to work either.
Yeah. Well, you know what? YouTube took the day off.
Yeah. But I don't know what the last part that kind of cut out there, or what it was last said on there, but the dual simultaneous functionality of it, for being able to receive versus actually being able to hear both at the same time. But it does have dual FM receive on there, so you can receive 2 FM signals at one time on there too. But those are kind of some of the, like I said, the highlight, high tier functions that are on there. Basically, all the functions that the 3 had plus more is into the 5.
Okay, great. Let's see. Okay. Big question here. A lot of newer users have. The 3 has 2 VFOs or 2 VFO windows, A and B. the 5 also sports the full dual VFOs. What's the difference between the two?
Well, there's not really a big difference between the two. I mean, turning on the 3 here, you'll see in a minute here. I always keep mine in A mode or single band mode, so it does show it on there, so you can see it kind of a little bit on there. That yes, it does have. I was listening to some GMRS stuff and whatever on mine, but you'll see that it's kind of equally displayed. What happened was a lot of people said, "Man, I really want to be able to have." excuse me, more of a window, more of a what frequency am I on? What, or more importantly, what band am I on? Am I on the A side or the B side of the radio? And then that's where it came into play that we said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make and still show it there. But what we're going to do is the band or the side we're using, we're going to make it a little bit larger. And then we're going to be able to allow you to select white, blue, or red, white, and blue, which, being a Labor Day, how nice is that, right? For knowing what band you're operating on. So I've chose blue. I like the color blue on there, but you can have that readout in red, or you can have that readout in white if you want to. So it still has that dual display if you want to have it on there, but we just made it a little more pronounced so you know if you're on the A side or the B side.
Okay. Let's see. All right. I'm gonna skip around here. Let's see. And I've seen it in the chat here. The scan feature.
Mm-hmm.
Where the 5 says VFO or memory scan, and the 3 has the frequencies rolling through. Is this something that can be switched out by the user, or is this something that and hang on, let me get to a different camera here. Crap, every time I do this I gotta figure this out. Let's see, is this something that can be switched out by the user, and if not, is this something that Yaesu would consider adding a firmware release to, or adding features as a firmware release?
So this actually, believe it or not, I know I've heard some people complain about it too, but actually we've seen a lot of people that have actually said thank you for it. And the reason being is because when they wanted a memory scan, they wanted a VFO scan. A lot of people ask, can it just say scan on there? And that's actually a lot of public safety radios do this, but that's not the reason why we did it. What it was is we found out a couple things. One, when the screen's going through over and over and over again, showing frequencies, that's actually taking up battery because the display is actually receiving data on there. In addition to it also too, some people wouldn't know if they were in VFO or they were in memory scan, because if they send a frequency, they hit scan and they just see things moving. If they had a bunch of, let's say it started in 147 range and they went through 147, yeah, it would look like the last part spinning, but if they had multiple frequencies on there, or the names are going by, or those kind of things like that a lot of people said, I just want it to be a situation where it tells me I'm in scan. That's what they wanted. And I said, okay, fine. That's one that's on there. I know some people said it's a horrible thing on there. I guess I hate to say it this way, but we can't, please everybody all the time. But if someone does have a suggestion, as we always tell people, regardless on there, if you do have a suggestion or something, please feel free to send it up through us through our Yaesu site, under the contact us page on the yaesu.com website. You can go ahead and make submissions there. We do ask that you go ahead and actually include your name and include some of the contact data in case we do need to get a hold of you. I mean, we've had people that have sent good suggestions, but some were funny and they put in fake names. And it's just like, okay, it's a good suggestion, but they put in John Doe. Okay, well, it's like, I'm probably going to say your name is not John Doe because they didn't give any other information on there. But it's just like, well, we can't really take that suggestion, because if we had questions or stuff on there, you're kind of doing a fake name. We don't know if you're really serious about it. So submit those things up, and then, you'd be surprised at some of the things that we have listened to, we have taken under advisement, and we do those kind of things. Good example I always tell people is the beep on Fusion. When Fusion first came out, it did not have a beep. People complained. They said, how do I know when the other person is done talking in Fusion, because there's no squelch tail? Couldn't there be a beep or something? Yeah. So in the firmware, boom, we added a beep to it. So when it's the end of frame transmission is there. So things are possible. I don't know if it can be done or can't be done as implementation. That's way above my pay grade, and other people specialize in that. But, submit it up as a suggestion.
Okay. Well, there you go, guys. We might have a voice in how this thing is implemented in the future, or support, because I know there's a lot of guys that say nope, don't like it if it does what it does, and then like you said, there's people that say, hey, I would rather see it say scan. So I kind of thought, hey, if there's like a thing that says show scanning frequencies or not, um, that would kind of settle it for everybody, I guess. Let's see. I have read in a few forums, and I promised my friend Ryan that I would shout out his group, the FT3 FT5 users group on Facebook. So there it is, Ryan. I've shouted you out. People asking why doesn't any of the Yaesu radios, in particular the fusion radios like the FT5, include DMR? Care to take that on?
Yeah, that's a very logical question. We get asked that all the time. DMR was designed as a business type of technology. It was designed and came out of a European standard, which was picked up, and then of course all the other manufacturers added their little tweaks and stuff to it. But it was designed for business, and it was designed for that type of operation. It compresses voice down. It puts it into the I don't want to say the 2-time slot factor on there and what have you. But what we did is when we came out with Fusion, we were looking at Fusion. DMR was still pretty in its infancy for amateur radio, and we wanted something that was designed for amateur radio right off the basis. Okay, DMR also has a high learning curve. Now, I'm sure it's going to start the world on fire, but it is difficult if you are not comfortable with programming radios and then the different stuff for DMR. There is things, time slots, color codes, talk groups, all those kind of things like that on there. Fusion was designed as one of the 3 core principles we had was ease of usage. That was one of them. And that's why we are sticking with Fusion. We didn't want to follow the footsteps. We didn't want to try to make our own thing where it was going to be more difficult. I mean, Bob, you got one. I'm sure everybody else that has ever had a Fusion radio, it goes ahead. What do? You enter in your call sign. Once you've entered in your call sign, then you enter your frequency, and then you push the mode button or the DX button on the radio, depending on model, and boom, you're transmitting on Fusion. It's just DMR is just more of a complicated business thing. Technically, it doesn't fit the ID requirements where Fusion does. Fusion transmits your call sign. Once again, because it's amateur radio based on there. So we've people said all the time, oh, do Fusion, do DMR. And we've had people ask, do P25 and stuff. And it's like, no, those are not amateur based or amateur designed, communications. And therefore we found Fusion is better, and we're not going to go ahead and do anything with DMR.
Okay. Kind of moving away a little bit from the FT5, and I know you're here to talk about the FT5, but I kind of wanted to talk about some more 10,000 foot level stuff. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about was we see a lot of innovation in things like cell phones. Lots of innovation. Every 6 months, there's a new iPhone or a new Samsung. And kind of as I see it, and I see Yaesu kind of as the leader churning out new products. I kind of see that FT2, or I guess you would say the FT1 concept, incrementally improved on through the 3 and now the 5.
Hmm.
And it's all been done in a pretty short amount of time. Um, ICOM, they came out with the ID51. It's got to be 10 years ago, and they've ran with the 51 for close to 10 years, which is pretty standard in the ham radio world. Um, you've done this in, I would say, what, about 5 years, maybe a little bit longer. Um, so like you said earlier, some guys are talking about this as like a money grab. You guys are just trying to, take all our money. Um,
Hmm.
I see it as more like, well, you know what? You don't have to upgrade to every single radio if you don't want to. If your FT3 works great and you're 100% happy with it, why move up? Um, so I see what you guys have done so far as kind of a good thing. Um, can you explain Yaesu's philosophy on the innovation that you're doing in comparison to to other manufacturers in the ham radio space and in technology space as a greater thing? Cell phones, computers, everything else that's technology.
That's a really good question, and in this day and age, it is more difficult. Yeah, I will agree. When I first started out in amateur radio back in like the early '90s, radios did seem to tend to be out there on the market longer than what some of the radios are. We have always had a diverse portfolio of radios. As a matter of fact, I've talked to many of our dealers, and many of our dealers have joked around and said that you guys have just about pretty much had a radio for every sort of consumer that is out there, whether it be analog, whether it be digital, whether it be dual band versus mono band, that kind of thing like that on there. Our innovation comes through really kind of listening to what the customer really kind of wants, what they've made suggestions, what they thought would be improvements, but then also more importantly, where kind of some of the aspect of where we see a lot of users wanting to move to. I'll give you an example here. So my FT1 here. Okay, I borrowed the battery and the antenna off it for my other stuff here, right? But one of the things about the FT1, people said, it's got a screen on there. It's a nice screen, but I would like a touch screen, and I would like to be able to do fusion on the A and the B band instead of just the A band. Okay, cool. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and do that. Then we came out with the FT2. So the innovation kind of came as saying, hey, this is what people want and what's happening on there. So what we did was we came out. Then we came up with the touchscreen. When we came up with the dual fusion vocoders, we added, more features onto there. This was actually our first handheld radio that could actually do PDN or HRI mode. So it's just kind of been innovating. More and more people said, hey, I want a touch or a color screen now. I want a color screen. I want this. I want this. I want this. Okay. So then let me say, I got too many radios here. Don't tell my wife that. But then we came up with the FT3. And we said, okay, hey, and people wanted a more ruggedized housing. People wanted a smaller, compact body design. People, there were numerous different things that we can improve on. So that's what we did on there. So it really kind of, and then of course now we have the FT5 that came out there. But where we came from, a lot of it does really gear towards where the kind of the market is going, where we can estimate where the market's going, or what kind of features people want that are going to have a dependent and ripple effect. Good example. I'll go back to the FT1 here. The camera microphone. I know some people don't like it. Some people don't use it. I use it a lot. As a matter of fact, I take snapshots and I'll send it out to people sometimes and stuff like that. And on through my Wires X node and stuff, I've actually exchanged pictures with a couple different people. Believe it or not, more so when there's been storms that have come through. Okay. But people wanted, they wanted to be able to see, the picture that they took. Well, you can't see it on here. So you're guessing. Okay, like the old 35 millimeters and 110 film. But when we came out with, and I don't even know where I put it. See, I got too many radios here. Here, FT2. When it came out the FT2, well, you could see the picture, but it was grayscale. So as one person reminded me, he said, it's like going ahead and taking a picture of my old Nokia 5100 series telephone. Could go ahead and do that. Okay. The other thing then said, okay, let's do a color screen. Color screen is going to provide some of those functionalities, some of those features on you. So therefore, we went along and we said, let's do a color screen on there. And it's just kind of those little impacts and innovation that we can have on there. We're always in research and development too as a company. And I think that's important to make sure people understand that. It's not like, as I had one person tell me, oh, you guys came out with the 5, you're going to kick back now and have champagne and smoke cigars and wait until another couple years. No, it's not that at all. We're on to another project. As a matter of fact, we have about 3-4 projects going right now, and that's about all I can say on that. But we always have something going on where we're doing innovation or stuff on there. It's kind of hard to compare to the cell phone market because we are a close, tight market. We don't have as many. Obviously, there's billions of cell phone users around the world, and while I would love to say there's billions of amateurs around the world, we all know that's not unfortunately the case on there. And not all hams want to use a radio, or I should say an amateur radio. Some like to use a business radio or commercial radio that they've programmed up there. So with that being said, it kind of tries to drive that, and we kind of try to determine or think of what's going to be the best. It's hard. It's a very, very, very difficult game that we have to play. And I say game is because obviously if we don't hit the nail on the head or we do something that they don't tend to like or something like that, then people don't like the radio. And then there's other times where we've done small innovations and stuff like that. I'll give this one over here. I just got to blow dust off because it's my backup one in my bag that I just took out that I was going to clean and stuff. The FT70. This thing sells like hotcakes. People love it. People throw it. I hear people all the time going ahead and saying, I carry with me. That's what I do. And my squad bag that I have for when I'm on duty as a medic, I have that radio in there with me. It's there. So it's hard to say where innovation goes. We could speculate all day long, but unfortunately, it's difficult.
Cool. Thanks. Let's see. You know what? As a follow up to that one, do you see this trend of you guys expanding into other products like your HF radios, mobiles, stuff like that? I know I had bought 2 FTM 400s, and I've got one here in the shack, and I've got one in my Jeep. And then all of a sudden, here comes an FTM 300, which replaced the 100, right? Yeah, because I've got a 100 over there running Wires X. So I never bought a 300. I had to borrow one to do a quick review. So do you see that continuation? And you kind of answered that already. Into all your other products.
Yeah, and we're doing that. We, like I said, we have many projects that are in development right now. I'll give you a good example. And it's kind of a fun a customer told me this. He says, "You know what? You guys may not be necessarily the first to the table, but when you guys are at the table, it is very well known that you guys are at the table because of your quality and equipment." A good case example, talking about HF specifically, is the FTDX 101. We had the FTDX 101 in production for a while. A lot of people saying, "Oh, you guys are missing the boat on SDR and stuff like that." Yeah, I told people, believe what you want to believe, but I don't believe that's the case. No. You guys don't have an SDR radio out. You guys are going to be so behind the 8 ball. And what do? We came out with the FTDX 101. We did right. We did correctly. And, whether you listen to Sherwood or not, it was number 1 on the Sherwood list, has a lot of different great reviews on it for a lot of different reasons on there. Same thing with the FTDX 10. People are like, oh, well, that's only a high end. You only care about high end amateurs. You don't care about low end. No, we came out with the FTDX 10. I have an FTDX 10, and actually, I will tell you, from the time that it was in development to time that it came out, it actually improved because of our commitment to it on there. So we always are. We're always looking, on how we can improve and make the amateur world for products a lot better,
Okay. And all right, now here's something I'm gonna kind of hit you. as an industry insider, what have been the market trends, general market trends in ham radio for, say, the past 5-10 years? Is ham radio gaining or losing in overall users and sales?
I'm gonna here. I guess I don't look at it so much as sales. I guess I look at it what the flavor of the day is and how we reinvent ourselves. I kind of joke around and I say amateur radio to a degree is like Madonna. Madonna once said, she says, the reason I want to go ahead and be a great artist is because she's always trying to reinvent herself. And I kind of think that's what we do in amateur radio. And I think what we take and what we perceive as what we are in amateur radio really has a strong influence on what happens and what goes on. Good case in point. Over the last 5 years, sunspot cycle has been it's not been there. HF communications have been really, really, really difficult. So what has people done? A lot of there's HFers who are still out there. I'm kind of one too that I don't do a lot of contesting, but yeah, I'll still bang away on the mic key to see if anybody's there, and stuff. But more importantly, it's people have been saying, well, what do they want to do? They want to do VHF and UHF because that's not affected by the sunspot cycle. Okay, great. So a lot of UHF and VHF has been used. A lot of VHF and UHF has been utilized. But now that the sunspot cycle is hopefully starting to return, we're going to start to see that kind of migrate back forward. Amateur radio as a whole has always been public safety or public service geared, and then communications, electronic hobbies, those kind of things like that on there. That impacts a lot. We see a lot of people, especially during the time of COVID, all those kind of things like that. A lot of groups that sometimes they get the term of prepper groups on there. And they were buying specific models of radios and for specific purposes. Okay. And with that being said, then, yeah, it drove certain radios and stuff because of the feature set and the ability of the radios. So it's kind of hard to say. There's never, I have never seen it that there's one specific, like this is, you could bet your bottom dollar on it, that kind of deal, that this is going to be the way it is. We all kind of fluctuate. It all depends on what you get in for amateur radio. And that kind of is how the market has swung and how the market has been going on from ever since I got into the market, or I should say amateur world, to see the market when I bought my first handheld to working for Yaesu today.
Okay. Got to take a quick time out to tell you guys, 100 people or so in here, 98 people, 47 thumbs up. Come on, guys, give a brother a break. Thumbs up. I need 100 thumbs up. Let's see. And go to camera 2. We're going to add John into camera 2. And now I want to switch gears again. And I want to move into the Wires X world generally. And, I'm running a node over here. I run the YouTubers room. And as a matter of fact, YouTubers is on. It's on over on my radio behind me. And I don't know if you're tuned into YouTubers or not, but you could be. And we could get some guys saying hi. A lot of people ask me, because in my old club back in California, I was in charge of kind of finding us a place in the digital world, and I settled us on Fusion and got the ball rolling on Fusion. And I had been a long time D-Star guy. I mean, from 10 years before, but I felt that Fusion was the easiest for everybody to get onto, and it really is. It sounded good with the current crop of equipment, and so does D-Star with the current crop of equipment. But I have people that get very, very confused, and they think that if they can't operate the W button or the Wires X button, they can't get on Wires X. So what is that W button What is that big W for?
So the Wires X button is basically allows you to.
Oh, no. Are you still there? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What happened? What happened? I'm offline. Why did this Okay. How about now? I'm offline. How am I offline? Am I back? Guys, am I back here? They are taking a break there, aren't they? YouTube
How's
is
that? Is that better?
yeah, YouTube is definitely taking a break.
I think it's a strategic attack by our competition. No, just kidding. Uh, so the question you had was the Wires X button. What exactly is that button for? And the easiest way to describe it is it's for remote control. So basically, what ends up happening is that when you have a Wires X node set up, the whole concept is designed to be set up that you could remotely operate Wires X. Okay. Um, and that's what that handshake does. There's two different types of aspects of Wires X. There's the control functionality of it, and there's just the voice functionality of it. So if you are connected to a Wires X node and you're only going to talk on the Wires X node, then all you need to do is just key up your microphone on the frequency in digital mode or analog mode, however you want, and just go ahead and do it. Talk. That's all you need to do. When you hit the Wires X button, what that does is it creates a handshake, as we call it. And it basically says, hi, I'm this radio. I would like to control you, remote control you. And from that point there is the next thing you do is the node will respond back to you, and then you can remotely control it. You can change rooms, you could disconnect, you can connect to rooms, nodes, whatever, upload pictures, upload voice, all those kind of things like that on there. That's what the Wires X button is. It's only for controlling it. I give it this kind of a good example is, say you have a TV at home. Obviously, you have the remote control, right? You have the remote control. You could, especially if you have a smart TV these days, you can hit the button to go to Netflix. You can hit a button to Hulu. You can do whatever you want to do with it. But you don't need that remote to listen to the TV, right? You can hear the TV. You could see the TV without the remote. That's in essence what the Wires X button is. It's you picking up that remote and then going ahead and operating the TV, changing channel, changing streaming service, whatever. That's what the big difference between the Wires X button is and just talking on the radio.
Okay. Let's see. All right. Lots of nodes and rooms, Wires X rooms, they are cross connected to YSF and FCS reflectors. Just like just like mine here on YouTubers. I'm connected to FCS 00348. Um, a lot of folks think that they're one and the same. Um, and more importantly, a lot of people, they get into, say, like YouTubers or America, or is it America Link, some of the big ones, on their hotspots. And that's a whole nother, getting into America Link on a hotspot is a whole nother subject. um so what is the difference between Wires X proper, Fusion, and the YSF FCS stuff?
Well, it's big. It's really two different concepts. So we invented Wires X to be what they call centralized, decentralized, which means basically is when you turn on your Wires X node with your computer, you go up to a server, okay, and that server basically goes out and says is, yes, you're an actual WiresX node. Yes, you're a registered WiresX user. Here's your node number. Here's your room number. You're good to go. You're valid. All righty. When a connection is actually made with WiresX, it is basically going to a peer-to-peer connection. All righty, is really what it is. Especially if you have a room. That's why you need an HRI 200 to host a room, because when anybody connects to a room, it directly is connecting to your actual HRI 200 setup. All righty. So, hey, I want to, I'm at home here with my node. I want to connect to our room, Yaesu USA, 21000. What I'm actually doing is I'm not going to a server and connecting through the server. I'm actually going directly to where that room and a computer is hosted for the WiresX room. YSF and FCS reflectors are that. They're reflectors. You have to, basically go to a server. So when you're using them, you're going into a device which is tunneling you to a server. And then the server then spits you back out to everybody else that's listening to that server. So that's the biggest difference between the two. I think the further things that need to be aware of is that Fusion adheres to the Fusion protocol, which I will say this until I'm blue in the face, even probably way after I'm done working for Yaesu. The Fusion protocol is 100% open, people. It is not proprietary. I will tell you this. It is not proprietary. All righty. I know people say that it is, and it's not. If it was not proprietary, why would I tell you as an agent of Yaesu that it's not proprietary? But more importantly, we use that Fusion protocol, and our Fusion protocol on our radios go ahead and work around a 3% bit error rate max. Meaning, if you have a higher bit error rate or burr than 3%, your connection is going to be, it's going to go away. We're not going to pass audio. We're not going to pass that kind of that garbage, as we kind of call it, because then it gets, if it was to be decoded over 3%, it would be very kind of making noise, right? FCS reflectors and devices that are used on FCS and YSF reflectors, they are tunnels. So they don't cut anything off. They're not radios in essence like a Fusion radio. They're nothing more than just RF comes in, puts it into a tunnel, and sends it off to where it needs to go. That actually allows a lot of the quote unquote higher bit error rates to go. And the way it was told to me was garbage in is garbage out. So if you have a high bit error rate going in, you're going to have a high bit error rate going out. But then also too with it is that when you're using YSF or FCS reflectors, it is a reverse engineered protocol of Fusion. I don't know why they just didn't download the specs and then do that, but they didn't. It's reverse engineered. And so it's not using the true Fusion voice protocol, and it operates and behaves differently. Now, I know a lot of people like the hotspot because it's a small little compact device and everything like that. We don't have any of those small compact little devices on it. The smallest we do is basically the handheld running, at basically a quarter or tenth of a watt, depending on there, for the PDN, because we don't like the server aspect of things. We like to have the direct connection, the high bit rate, the high quality, those kind of things like that on there. So that's really the big difference between the two. Now, touching on a point that you kind of brought up, how people may have difficulty getting into rooms and stuff that have these connections. We get a lot of calls on that. And what we actually will ask people will be like, first of all, I said, okay, hey, you said you're having bad transmission with the Fusion. Yes, I am. Okay. What are you doing? Well, I'm talking into a room. Okay. Well, what kind of room? Well, I'm talking into a room, blah, blah, blah room. Okay. What kind of WiresX device are you using? And then they'll go ahead and they'll be like, well, I'm not using WiresX. Well, what are you using? I'm using a hotspot or something. Okay. What is your bit error rate and stuff? Have you checked it with an actual true Fusion device is what we will ask people. And they say, oh yeah, when I do that, that's fine. That's not a problem. It works great. But with those reflectors, there is a different kind of concept and design on there. So they are different in nature and how they operate. And some of the times with that aspect, you will actually have people that will cut out. I've had people, and I've been on nets that I've actually been invited into and talked on, where I will connect it on the WiresX side. Everybody using WiresX is fine, but because there's bad data coming in from the other side, the WiresX is cutting that off. So therefore, you'll get audio drops, you'll get interference, those kind of things like that.
Okay. Let's see. You know what? There was one question here from a really really good guy here. I want to put that up on the screen from James Hannibal. His VX8 had nearly all these features, but crippled Bluetooth, crippled TNC, and I don't get that. I know the VX8 had a TNC on it. Why not include that in the FT5? A TNC or full duplex for the satellite guys.
So full duplex requires a lot of additional filtering on there, and it's hard to put it into a handheld when you have so much more stuff in there. I know people will go ahead and say, no, you had it in your older handhelds and stuff. Yes, we did have it like in the FT470, and I believe it was the FT530 that we did have full duplex in there, and even crossband repeat. Yes, it's true, but it's, once again, it comes down to size, comes to components. You know, there are digital vocoders and stuff in here which do take up room, so we can't necessarily have enough room to put the filtering in for doing duplexing. Mobile's completely different. There's a lot more room in a mobile radio per se than that. But everybody complains about the TNC thing, and I'll tell you straight this. Are you looking for a TNC or are you looking for plug and play? And I'm going to go ahead and say this, and I know there's probably comments of people saying a TNC in there, but you can actually do WinLink. You can actually do packet. You can actually do things with the radio. Okay. But with that being said, the people don't realize is that we have the data port on here. Okay. And there are numerous cables. Okay. That data port right there. Okay. That puts out audio, because that's where you can plug in the camera speaker microphone. That does go ahead and put out data and allows you to go ahead and connect and do data. And I know people that have purchased our data cables to plug into the radio. And yes, they've had to make some interfaces, or they had to use maybe a signal link or something like that on there, that they can make it, and that they can actually go ahead and use a TNC that or functionality on their computer. So they could use a sound card audio program and stuff like that on there. So there is the possibilities on there. I think what people are wanting, or people saying that's not there, is they want something that's plug and play. But there is the possibility to do that. I have friends I know, and a good case in point is, and I'll reach over here real quick, but let me grab it here if this is the right one. But for an example, this is the Wires X kit that I have as my spare, okay, on there. So it has the CT44, but it has the audio cables out there, and it even has the USB data cable that comes with it, that we use for Wires X. So therefore, if you're looking for that aspect of things, yes, you can connect cables and you can go ahead and, do that data functionality on there. Numerous people have. So it's more or less, I think, of people saying, I want plug and play, where I connect this cable to here, this cable to here, and then it just does that, as compared to saying of the functionality, because it's there. It's just, some people haven't used it, I guess, or do it.
Okay. So James said he's looking for Bluetooth TNC access without wires, which brings me to my question, because I like to travel with my radios. And hang on, I have to switch my camera back, so I'm in there. And I did figure out how to do that, by the way. While you were talking, I reprogrammed everything. So anyway, yeah, I always like to take the FT3 with me on vacation and wherever I'm going. And I would love to access Wires X, true Wires X, from the road. And without a computer with me, ain't gonna happen. And without my either a cable or an HRI 200, ain't gonna happen. Is there any talk about streamlining the Wires X process, or say the mobile TNC, for mobile users to minimize the needed hardware on the road? Things like open spots or other hotspots. Could you see this? Hang on, I got to regroup myself. Can you see Yaesu cooperating or developing a hotspot solution with something like a Wires X Lite?
No, no, because well, I guess a kind of a couple things in that whole thing there. I guess we'll talk about WiresX. So WiresX was initially designed as a solution where people did not have repeater access, or they wanted to access a repeater which was not physically possible even by properties of RF. So that's where WiresX came into play. That's why it started out only as the mobile aspect of things. As a matter of fact, when we released the PDN and HRI functionality, we actually added the ability to do access point, which would allow you to use another radio to talk to it. Kind of towards the end of development. Initially was designed to go ahead and basically turn your radio into a speaker microphone to be able to talk down WiresX. So no, you would still need to require to be using a computer. You would still need to require to be using a cable of some sort, because WiresX is that kind of functionality on there. When you talk about like hotspots devices and everything like that, even though the handhelds can go down low in power, the aspect of WiresX once again was designed to be local nodes and a network of networks, that kind of thing like that on there. Alrighty. So you basically would connect your WiresX device to, or I should say, your radio to your computer, and that's why if you notice, there's an interactive terminal for the WiresX software. It has the ability for you to send messages. It has the ability to record messages and play messages through there. It's designed to be basically a terminal and RF connection point. And more importantly, WiresX was also designed to be networked together, and that's why there's like 2 ports on the back of the HRI 200 and stuff like that and everything on there. But it was never designed to be small. It was never designed to be a, like a UHF hotspot that only puts out like 10 milliwatts or something like that on there. Really can never see anything on there because of the way WiresX is designed. There are certain things that need to be done. Hotspot devices just are not going to fit that requirement that we have for WiresX on there. Some people have gone ahead and said, well, can't you connect it via Bluetooth? Can't you do something like that on there? And actually not. It even goes back to the TNC, which you kind of said on there. There's not an actual TNC in there. It's basically a data protocol set, the algorithm of what APRS is on there, which a lot of devices have that. They don't actually have a true TNC in their radios, but actually an algorithm on there. So there's no accessible like modem in there. Same thing with the Bluetooth. People have asked, can we do WiresX via Bluetooth? No, the Bluetooth is only designed for audio. That's it. It's not designed for control. It's not designed for commands. It's not designed for data, for like programming or stuff like that on there. So those are kind of some of the aspects on there. But as people have, and I've done it myself, I've run WiresX literally on a small Windows tablet on there with just the SCU19 cable plugged in a handheld. And when I was beta testing, actually, as a matter of fact, the PDN functionality, I was actually sitting in an airport, which was one of the funny stories I've talked about, where airport police came up to me and said, hey, how's it going? What are you doing? And I quickly met them because I'm sitting there with my radio, actually the FT2 at the time, a cable going from my radio into a tablet, the tablet connected to the airport Wi-Fi, and I'm sitting there talking on these kind of things like this. That's kind of I guess, this most slimmed down version that you can have on there. But as for, I've heard people saying, well, why can't you just do it an app on your phone and stuff? No, because it's Windows based. The architecture needs a .NET framework, those kind of aspects on there. In addition, more importantly, I think the other aspect is security. We have seen WiresX try to be used, or I should say WiresX, but wires try to be used for business purposes. We don't want that to happen. We don't want it to be turned into business purpose. We don't want it to be turned into something other than a true amateur radio connection.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to take a few questions from our non-studio audience. Let's see. Scott asks. He has a FT70. The rubber port cover is starting to get hard. Where can he get a replacement?
You can call our parts department on there. They're open tomorrow. Obviously, they're off today, but you can either send the radio. Well, it depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about the screw one here, you could just order this to our parts department and place it yourself on there. If you're talking about like on the buttons here, as a matter of fact, I had mine because the curved out there, I caught it up and I caught it on something and stuff. If it needs to be, the radio needs to be disassembled, then you can actually send it in for repair too. But otherwise, you can order it through our parts department.
Okay. Let's see. Dennis asks, he would like to see other Bluetooth offerings. Yaesu is almost there. And Dennis, I don't know what the what the exact question is.
I'm gonna venture to say is, people have always said I want to be able to use all different headsets with the devices and stuff like that on there. It's really difficult to do that because there are so many different protocols. As a matter of fact, I have to upgrade my cell phone personally. I was talking about phones earlier, but looking at it now, they're like up to version 5.3 or something like that on Bluetooth. So it's hard to go ahead and continue to do that. But more importantly, a lot of this stuff with Bluetooth, a lot of the newer stuff coming out for Bluetooth also has command or control functions in there. An example, I have a Samsung cell phone. I have the earbuds or ear pods or whatever they're calling them today. And I put them in there, and if I'm out mowing the lawn or doing something outside, listening to music, I want to pause music, I just tap it. Okay. I want to skip to the next track. I have mine set up for double tap. Lots of those things introduce weird data into it that the radio cannot interpret and work with. And therefore, that's why sometimes they won't sync or they won't work. Same thing with car Bluetooth in the console and stuff. Some people say, well, why can't it work? I want to be able to operate my radio from the console. Well, what do you mean operate from the console? They'll say, like, I want to be able to hit, channel up to key up and stuff. No, that's not possible because that's completely different protocols and everything like that on there. So right now it's only audio, but maybe in the future that might change.
Okay. Michael asks, please ask about programming software. Thanks.
We're working on it. It's going to be coming out soon. I don't have an exact time frame yet, but our ADMS software, which is free, which can be used with the SCU19 cable or it can be used with a SD card, will be coming out soon. No, you cannot use the FT3 software. No, you cannot take the memory out of your FT3 and put it into the FT5. It is a different data set. It is a different sort of a file feature set on there because of some of the features on there, because of things that you can change in software that the FT3 doesn't have. So it will be coming soon.
Okay. I know there was a bunch of questions up on the front end, and that's why I asked some guys to use Super Chat, so I'd be able to find them, and nobody did. So, let's see. You know what? We are actually way over the hour here. We're 13 minutes over the hour. So, wow. And Jim, he asked about the scanning problem. Oh, you know what? There was another one that I wanted to ask you about, but I don't know what the scanning problem is, Jim.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's we've already talked about the scan, the scan and the memory scan display thing, and that is something that Yaesu can do a firmware update if, I guess, people want it done, and if enough people want it done and ask through Yaesu.com, I guess.
They could. Yeah, people can always offer suggestions, not just about the FT5, but they can offer any suggestions that they would like through there, on there. That's always available for people to do that.
Okay, good. One of the things that I had noticed, and then I read it, I thought it was maybe just me, but when I inserted the my SD card, let me into the FT5, and I was gonna read it. Well, it said there's no SD card in here. And it should have at least seen that there was an SD card because I put the SD card into several other devices. It saw it. And I remember seeing something about that on one of the forums that people were having issues, and some people had to push on it. Is Have you heard of this issue in some of the FT5s of the SD port not reading things right?
No, what tends to happen is that a couple different things. One, it is recessed in there because of the rubber housing and stuff, or the gasket that we have over on there. So I do tell people, make sure it's seated. More importantly, we've had people. Then this even goes for the FT3 and the FT2, not just the FT5. You got to know which way your SD card comes into, because if you put the SD card in the wrong way, okay, what's going to happen is yes, when you push it in there, it's not going to work, it's not going to fit. But if you push it, you're going to break the spring loaded system on there. So what I always tell people is that if you're going to go ahead and do the SD card, take a little device and push something in there, and then it will lock in place. Now let me go ahead, and even for my fat sausage fingers, as I kind of call it, it's very difficult to get the SD card out, but I kind of actually like that too. So as you see, if the radio is back, okay, the front of the SD card needs to go in facing the back of the radio. So the label on the SD card needs to go to the back of the radio. And then if you take it in there, you'll hear the click. And I'm even going to do this on my microphone because you should be able to hear it. Do you hear that?
Yep.
Yep, that means it's in there. So it does click in there as long as you haven't jammed it in there. Like I said, the FT2, the FT3 was with there. People would jam it in there heavily, and then that would be the problem. The other thing that comes with it is that the SD cards only go up to 32 gigabytes. So if you have an SD card larger than 32 gigabytes, or we found out that there's a few select high-speed SD cards that have issues on there, then that might not work. What I tell people is that you can easily get by with an 8 gigabyte or 16 gigabyte SD card, hands down, easily. Even if you're running GPS tracking, a lot of people do logging and stuff like that. When I'm doing search and rescue stuff, I actually carried my 3 and my 2, but I'll start carrying my 5 now. I'll turn on the GPS logging for myself, and then later I'll do a reconstruct on there.
I hadn't even thought about doing that, but that sounds very cool.
Yep.
I'm getting a lot of, and if you're looking at YouTube, there's a lot of guys asking about the VFO scan, memory scan, and they want the change. Again, guys, John has already told us, get a hold or put it in as a suggestion, and if enough of us make that as a suggestion, I think at the very least they can add that in a future software update, which would be fantastic. Let's see. And Todd, my friend in Hawaii, asked, when will this interrogation be over? That is a great segue for me to say, John, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I know I asked you some questions that you probably really weren't expecting to hear on a ham radio show. But do you have any questions, any parting words for us? And then I'll let you go, and then I can do my thing.
I'll just tell everybody, thank you for being Yaesu customers. Thank you for supporting us. We tried to be able to get to everybody that we can. 2020 with COVID was tough on us. We've had to make some tough decisions for the safety of our staff for numerous reasons on there. And, we're getting through this. Hopefully the end is in sight on there. We hope to return to shows. However, go from there. And that's about all I can go ahead and say there. So, thanks for having me on the show. Thanks to everybody. I got to do our shameless plugs, if you don't mind. We are on social media. If I'm not on there, the Yaesu group, we have our admin team that takes care of it. So, they'll try to help out there too. In addition to that, we do have our podcast, the Yaesu, the radio show. where we talk about all things Yaesu and stuff like that on there. And then keep tuned for some more information and interviews coming through our websites and stuff about upcoming classes through our Yaesu Education System Network or our Yes Network. We will be having a class coming up soon on the FT5 users training, just like we did with the FTM 300. We'll go through on the FT5, go through it and everything, and that's on our YouTube channel, Yaesu USA Official.
Perfect. John, thanks again for joining us, and hope to have you on for, I don't know, some other product, some other time for other things, maybe talking about MCOM or first responder stuff. Oh, one thing I will tell you, I know you're an EMT. You probably got a patch somewhere, and I have a patch wall here. It's all cops, a few firemen, but they're all hams. And so everybody's got every patch on the wall here has a call sign written on the back. I'd love to get one from you. So
I will see what I can do.
All right, my friend. Hey, thanks again. And I'm going to go back to my solo here and come out and say, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Got 73 thumbs up. Right now, 86 people on the stream. I know people are saying 7 3s. But anyway, I want to remind you guys, please hit the like on this video if you're watching it on the replay. Hit the subscribe button. Please comment on this video, even if it is just to say comment, because the more interaction, the better things look on YouTube. I need all the help I can get, frankly. So, guys, with that, thanks for joining me for lunch and ham radio. Hopefully next week I will be in Oregon. I'm going to try to do it from my phone. It'll be fun if it works. So anyway, thanks again, and be sure and look out for this week's video, regular video coming out. And I will catch you guys next time. I'm Bob, K6UDA. I'm out of here, 7-3.